while talking to some very smart AI founders, a lot of owners of SaaS companies, venture capital investors. So again, a lot of 90% of what you see is not my own thought process, but observations I've kind of gleaned over the past 6-7 months while we worked on the agentic, talking to AI founders, SaaS companies doing really cutting edge work in AI agents. So I think we all agree that AI agents will radically reshape how where SaaS is going. I think that everybody knows about Klarna, where they said they've ditched Salesforce, Workday, and they're ditching all their kind of run-of-the-mill SaaS platforms in favor of basically building custom tools in-house, which they feel both saves them money and two, basically captures their workflows a lot better than standardized tools do. And just today, perfect timing for a presentation. This is actually a post which came from what you see on the right-hand side is a post from the founder of Nord Security, which is the famous Nord VPN, where he says the world is on a tipping point where SaaS apps will be created by prompts with backends, billings, and databases. So, and he makes an interesting comment that essentially the way the market is, it kind of naturally favors the smaller companies, smaller founders. And I'm a big believer in that AI agents fundamentally in the SaaS space at least naturally favor the smaller companies and the smaller founders as compared to the larger companies. Of course, the first slide that I put up there spoke more about the fact that the Klarna scenario is more about the fact that with AI-based coding tools and AI agents, the cost of software engineering drops. So there'll be a lot of larger companies moving their software development in-house. Now, this is something that I would give credit to the team at Andreessen Horowitz. They've actually got a very good series of blogs. I would highly recommend you read it whenever you have time. There were a series of blogs which are really, really good. And what they talk of the fact is that with AI agents, you're moving from the world of software as a service to essentially labor converting into software. Now this is, of course, data from them, is that their estimate was that the market for software and SaaS in the B2B space in the US is in the $250 to $300 billion range, while the US economy pays roughly more than 10 trillion or more in labor and wages. And what AI agents represent is a pretty seismic shift where essentially it blurs the lines between what is software and what is human labor. So suddenly you're going to see a market size that goes potentially from a $300 billion today to potentially $2 to $3 trillion within a 5-year period. So that's the big opportunity with AI agents and SaaS. It's not the fact that it helps basically in the enterprise. Yes, it basically allows enterprises to move a lot of their engineering software development tools in-house, lower SaaS costs, puts an end to these long enterprise, these very one-sided SaaS contracts. But I think the real action is happening in the SMB space, in the AI first company space, where you're going to look at a very rapid, a very significant market expansion of the opportunity. So again, my experience as an entrepreneur the past 24 years has largely been with small, mid-sized customers, small SMB customers. I've not done much enterprise business. Of course, what I speak about today is going to be probably a bit biased towards SMBs and AI founders and smaller companies as compared to large companies. But I think that's where the big opportunity is. So one is, I kind of do agree with Sam Altman when he says there is a future for a $1 billion company. While that might be an extreme scenario, but what AI will end up creating is a bunch of AI-first companies which don't exist today, where a 5-10 person company is potentially doing anything from 5 to 100 million in revenue. And they're going to basically be a massive consumer of AI agents. If it's a 5-person company doing 10 million in revenue, you can imagine how much you're going to spend on AI. SMBs are a very clear shift here, where you're no longer, the SMBs are essentially basically going to be probably the fastest adopters of this particular trend, where essentially software is converging from software as a service to labor as software. Plus, this also opens up a very interesting scenario of being able to address highly underserved markets, which really don't make much of a market if it's pure software. But the moment you start looking at it being a labor as software, those markets make a lot of sense. So one example that the team at Andreessen Horowitz said that 38,000 chiropractors in the US, it's too small a market for SaaS. But those chiropractors are spending roughly close to $6.5 billion a year in essentially administrative expenses, whether it's scheduling, billing, accounting. Now, essentially what's going to happen with AI agents is you start seeing a massive expansion of these underserved markets that happens. And again, all these trends essentially really favor the smaller and the more agile company. I'll come to why. Now, another thing that SaaS, what AI agents will do is completely decimate the current SaaS pricing models. And again, this is uh, thankfully so. This is basically very much tipped in the scale of smaller companies and more agile companies. By smaller companies, I mean here smaller SaaS, smaller AI agent providers as compared to larger companies. And I'll come to why. Largely, the world of SaaS has been all about per seat pricing or consumption-based pricing, right? Now you're moving to a world where essentially what you're going to get to is what's called outcome-based pricing. And with outcome-based pricing, you're looking at almost 5 to 20 times more revenue per customer. I'll give you one example, which is actually a live case with us. We're working with this company. In fact, we're going to announce something big with them next month. So I won't name them who they are. But we've got a pretty small sales team in the agentic. We've got 2 people who work in sales in the agentic. So if you try to sell us a CRM software, probably that's a $200 a month opportunity. We, for a couple of months, tried a bunch of quote unquote plain vanilla AI SDRs, and they charged us per email. Again, the opportunity there was limited because our TAM is about roughly 8,000 SaaS companies and AI founders. So our TAM is not a million customers, our TAM is about 8,000 customers. At that point of time, basically, again, the revenue opportunity is extremely limited, and our experience with that was pretty bad. We spent money on the AI SDRs. These AI SDRs were in campaign on a highly curated list, and we got exactly zero inbound interest. Now, there's a company who approached us saying that, look, we also work in we also work with AI startups. We have a massive database. We help essentially introduce SaaS and AI companies to potential investors. What if you pay us essentially for every customer conversation, every unique customer conversation that we get you? We agreed to a price of $150 per such conversation. And literally in the first month, which is in the month of December, we've had close to 28 conversations as of yesterday. So from essentially spending $200 a month on a CRM, we're spending right now close to almost $5,000 a month with them. And if the going goes the way it's going right now, we'll end up spending like close to about $30,000 in the month of January with them. So again, now with outcome-based pricing, again, why I say this really favors the smaller companies is it's a death knell of basically standard pricing. It's almost like with every customer, you have to look at the value you can provide, what you can really achieve, and how do you basically charge them separately for that. And that again favors the entrepreneur. I can't imagine the SDRs sitting at Salesforce.com working out an outcome-based pricing for every customer out there. It's next to impossible. So again, this is another very seismic shift that's taking place, courtesy AI agents in the SaaS space. So these are 2 business trends that we saw. Now I'll come a bit to how the engineering stack and how the delivery organization we see changing because of AI agents. So AI agents, basically, legacy SaaS was what people call a system of record, and I'll explain what I mean by that. And essentially, AI agents become what's called a system of actions. So if you look at SaaS today, it's about structured data and an army of software engineers pre-building wizards or workflows or reports on that structured data. And human beings essentially kind of work around the inflexibility of these tools and provide, sort of the human beings are the workflow, and the system, the job of a CRM, the job of an accounting system is to capture data, create reports, to create structure out of that workflow. That's what legacy SaaS has been doing, or for that matter, enterprise software has been doing ever since it's been invented. In the world of AI agents, you get to what's called a system of actions, because now it is AI or human-assisted AI or AI-assisted humans, which are essentially the workflow. So what you're looking at is AI agents, which not only can work with structured data, they can work with all sorts of unstructured data. They could look at your WhatsApp messages, emails, meeting summaries. They could scrape the web. They could look at pretty much any piece of information and act or execute a workflow based on an event which gets triggered off, either triggered by a human being, triggered due to a change we took on a website, for example, a marketing engine which could look at the change in status of one of your customers on LinkedIn and act accordingly. And now AI agents with infinite memory pretty much allows you to deliver what we call very personalized outcomes at scale. Means delivering personalized outcomes. If you had a lot of money, it made sense. But with AI agents, you're getting to a world where you're talking of personalized outcomes happening at scale. Now, this, of course, changes the complete way of how you even build your engineering organization and what kind of skill sets you need to succeed in this space. So first and foremost, we are moving away. What AI agents are doing is it's almost taking the cost of building a workflow down to zero. So earlier, if you had a custom workflow you required from a SaaS product. You essentially had a SaaS integrator, or you wrote some custom code to basically create a workflow or create a wizard. Now you have an agent which you can declaratively prompt, and in a matter of a few minutes, the agent can basically be taught how to execute a particular workflow. So the cost of creating software is completely crashing. Now, of course, this also creates a challenge, and this is something I spoke about 2 months back in San Francisco. I said AI agents bring a concept called non-determinism, right? So as software engineers, we always trained to think of a problem in a very if then else kind of procedure logic to software. Now, with agents, it's all about giving it the right prompt. How well you prompt it is how the agent will behave. And it's not necessarily the agent will always even behave very predictably, depending on the prompt. So essentially, you're now having a new engineering paradigm, which goes from deterministic code to very non-deterministic way of AI workflow being executed. And you move from a world of essentially software engineering to where you're almost curating these AI agents. It's like almost AI agents are a garden, and you're curating. You curate flowers in a garden, so you're curating these AI agents. So you're curating intelligence. That's what the world, that's what this new engineering paradigm brings, which also means it completely reshapes how engineering teams would get structured in SaaS companies when you're building AI agents. Now, if you see in the classical software developer or legacy SaaS world, most of the effort goes into building and testing software, and a very small portion of it is going into process design and process improvement. With AI agents, that equation flips completely. The cost of, as I mentioned, the cost of building the workflow becomes declarative. Literally within minutes, you could have AI agents creating new forms of workflow. But of course, they bring their own set of challenges. Non-determinism, you need to figure out where AI agents hallucinate. You need to figure out where do you need a human in the loop. How do you deal with the quirks of how agents can behave? Because AI agents can behave, sometimes they can be worse than humans in terms of how non-deterministically they can behave depending on the way you prompt them. So a lot of it sort of shifts in the legacy SaaS world. It was like you made a release, you wrote software, and then you planned your next set of improvements or releasing over a 3-month or a 6-month period. Or some very agile firms who did it within a month. With AI agents, it's almost like you're continuously kind of working on improving and modifying new flows, building new flows, testing new flows, doing A/B tests. So again, it changes how you look at basically the whole software engineering process and what kind of talent you need to hire for this. I'm a software engineer, and I hate to say this, that basically the star in the SaaS world, the AI agentic SaaS world is not going to be the software developers, but more people who come from a business process side of it or the humanity side of it, because they'll have a much more natural, I would say, much better natural understanding of how these things work as compared as software engineers we have. I still struggle. I can write assembly code, I can design a chip, but I still struggle with writing AI prompts. It's just unfortunate, but that's how most software engineers are. We just tend to think of the world very deterministically, and AI changes that completely. This is what our potential architecture of AI agents looks like. The simple word for that is multi-agents, where you have multiple agents which act in concert to deliver a particular outcome. We had to, of course, be good engineers, that we had to kind of complicate it and give it a long acronym called loosely supervised hyper customized AI agents. But now, what do I mean by that? That essentially AI agents, at least for the foreseeable future, cannot be completely autonomous. They need a fair amount of human oversight for them to work correctly and deliver the results you're looking at delivering. So that's where we say it's loosely supervised. It's not going to be very tightly supervised like how you write software, but it's more loosely supervised. And again, because the cost of building workflows starts to crash so dramatically and customers move to more of an outcome-based approach, you're looking at software being hyper customized to every customer need, every customer workflow, even for the smallest customer out there. It's no longer the fact that SMBs will just use a standard piece of CRM or a standard AI. Every customer would have pretty much their own agents adapting to their business, into their preferences, and delivering outcomes which are specific to them. But broadly, the architecture that the world is kind of settling on is what's called a planner agent. A planner agent is something that basically can understand a prompt you provide and call a bunch of other agents which are specialized in doing some jobs. So there could be agents which scrape the web. There could be agents which are calling third-party APIs, like an agent that could potentially understand that, look, this is a customer, there's a new customer email from a new customer. It identifies that and essentially calls the Salesforce.com API to basically enter that information into CRM. Plus coding agents, as well as specialized agents that basically are built for that particular purpose. And I'll give a few examples as I talk more about this, as well as agents which hook into the internal data sources that companies might have. Could be databases, could be files, could be emails, could be WhatsApp messages. So what you're moving to a world where essentially an expert is prompting a planner agent, and over a period of time teaching the sub agents on. So the way it works is the planner agent sort of then internally creates prompts for the other agents to act, and curation essentially involves someone looking at the logs of how this conversation is going, and then basically in a way tweaking these logs or tweaking these conversations such that the agents improve and basically get better at executing a particular workflow. So what this is, so as I mentioned, this basically pretty much eliminates the cost for customization. It basically, again, the biggest opportunity, the way I see with AI agents, is in verticalized SaaS. I think the horizontal SaaS is going to basically come under a huge amount of pricing pressure, and again, very, very highly personalized customer relationships, which again, the way I see it is probably favors smaller companies, favors AI founders. It's sort of, I would almost say it's a negative for the big companies, because you cannot really scale customer intimacy. That's a very hard problem. I don't think it's been proven anywhere. Now, I'll just probably give a couple of examples of how this multi-agent architecture looks like. So this is, for example, what a new generation SDR could look like. You have a planner agent, which is calling a scraping agent to go and say, okay, from my kind of a domain, look at LinkedIn, look at GitHub, look at a website, find me information. Potentially, we do a bunch of tool calls into into API services like Crunchbase, PitchBook, as well as look at internal knowledge bases and external knowledge bases. Based on that, create highly personalized emails for a particular prospect or a client, and the human being reviews the email and the email gets sent. Similarly, this is an example of an AI research agent, what it'll look like. You prompt the agent to basically generate a market research. So in this case, for example, generate a report of the top performing EV companies. So the planner agent basically understands your intent and understands your prompt, starts breaking it down into a variety of steps, depending on all the sub agents that are there in that particular scenario. So it does, again, you could have a scraping agent, which is looking at information sources and structuring them, tool calling for calling certain private APIs, a data analytics agent or a machine learning model agent, which is basically taking this information and running some statistical analysis, as well as looking at a knowledge base. And again, what you're having is a human in the loop, because AI agents do hallucinate. So there is always going to be a need for a human being to come and correct it and kind of guide this particular process. And the last is an example of a marketing campaign planner. Again, not only can this plan a campaign, this can actually execute the campaign. So think of it this way, that you want to create a campaign for your customers by looking at their social media, looking at and creating personalized videos for them. So it's almost like you could have a planner agent calling a specialized agent, which calls Midjourney. It basically prompts Midjourney in different ways to create personalized videos for every customer of yours. And then these personalized videos is what is sent to potential prospects and customers. So this is basically this idea of a large number of potential agents working together in this kind of custom workflow. And what we've seen is the state of technology, the way it is today, is these agents need a lot of babysitting or curation. They're not particularly that intelligent. They need a lot more work. They need the right kind of prompting. They need the right kind of teaching and fine tuning. And the fine tuning here is a lot more than just a simple LLM fine tune. What you're looking at is almost kind of understanding how the planner agent talks to a web scraping agent today, making some tweaks there, figuring out how it talks to Midjourney, making it tweaks there for a particular use case, and then scaling it. Now, I'll just cover, again, this is something that, again, in all fairness, I should give credit to Andreessen Horowitz. I picked up this information from a blog of theirs. The question becomes is, if you're an AI startup or if you're a small or a mid-sized agentic SaaS companies, what are your points of wedge? Again, the way I see it is the large players are up for disruption. So I'll just cover a couple of examples in this particular case. So we all know in the healthcare space, there is a company called Epic. The less is said about them, the better. They're the worst company to work with. Most people have told me that who have worked with Epic, they're terrible to work with. Now, there's this company called Tenor. They created essentially a healthcare-focused language model, which is able to basically capture patient information right at the source. So patient emails, patient phone calls, patient sending reports. They capture that information, structure it, and basically take the effort of then updating a system like Epic, updating a billing system. Now, Tenor used that as a wedge to be able to start the relationship with the customer. But very quickly, you're seeing Tenor now becoming the system of record. So Tenor started as a system of action, but very quickly, Tenor is replacing the underlying EHR and patient management systems, and very quickly you'll see a company like Tenor even getting to a point where they're offloading a lot of the administrative functions that typically a doctor's office needs. A doctor's office now may need a doctor, but billing, accounting, insurance claims would be a back end or consisting of humans and AI agents run by Tenor. So you can ask it all sorts of questions, saying, like in our case, we asked it, find me AI founders who potentially could be um, who have raised money, okay, who have probably new competitors. We gave it a bunch of insights and said, find me the best kind of customers. And we were quite impressed at the quality of data they came back with of who potentially could be a customer. And the interesting part, this is not cheap. When I first had a demo with them, they said, unless you're ready to spend 6,000 a month, don't even waste time setting up a demo with us. Now, again, Agentic is a very engineering heavy company. We are close to 130 engineers and 2 people in sales. So we're not a very sales driven company, but still we're willing to spend on something like this because of the value it provides. So again, lastly, to summarize, we're looking at a massive market expansion. Horizontal SaaS, again, what I'm saying may upset a few people. Horizontal SaaS is going to be highly commoditized. The system on record, after some time, nobody's going to care about because it's a system of actions which sort of controls is a point of value. And I think also there's a very interesting play of basically being able to integrate smaller agents. Okay, so I think you're moving from the world where you have these integrated ERP, CRM systems where they're very tightly integrated into a world where you could have agentic workflows which combine tools, web scraping, and also can call other agents to do the work. So I remember long back, Larry Ellison from Oracle said that, of course, his idea was to push the idea of an integrated ERP, CRM accounting system, said that best of breed only works for dog shows. That's what was said 20 years back. But now actually getting to a point where I think the idea of one vendor providing the entire integrated system of record, which is tightly knit together, is going away. Now you're going to move to a more of a loosely coupled architecture where agents can basically talk to each other, agents can call other software tools, and essentially can build declarative workflows on top of that. So that kind of completes my presentation. So Marian, can I do a shameless self-plug now, or should I first take questions, then I do a shameless self-plug?
I think you should do the shameless plug now, and then we're going to open it up.
Okay, perfect. All right, so there I'll be very quick. I promise not to bore everyone. I won't take more than 2-3 minutes to finish that. So what is agentic? We like to say we're the best large language model, and now there's a new word for it, the best reasoning model for AI agents. We beat Claude and GPT-4o dramatically when it comes to accuracy at a lot lower cost. Now, most language models have been built for conversational AI and chatbots first. That's what they're good for. When we built the agentic, it was built for AI agents to start with, basically. They were built for multi-step reasoning, tool calling, code generation, web scraping. So basically, the language model has been built more to drive AI agents rather than for conversational AI or for writing creative marketing reports or things like that. This is more built for precisely understanding your intent and then basically doing a bunch of tasks. So there are a bunch of benchmarks on this, and we basically pretty much smoke all the state-of-the-art models when it comes to accuracy on these particular benchmarks. So Berkeley function calling is a very well-known benchmark. Tau bench is a very well-known benchmark. And by the way, we also beat them on price too. We are 90% lower despite the fact that we are so much more accurate than them. And this is something I like to talk about a lot, but I'll keep it to the bare minimum. We kind of are proud of an invention. We don't claim to have any genius. We almost stumbled onto this invention. It's called auto evolution. So largely, if you look at model fine tuning, has always been about collecting large amounts of data, labeling it, cleaning data, and then you fine tune a model for your own use case. What we figured out was that we could essentially that language models don't only learn from data. We figured out that when you have a multi-agent system, like the kind of frameworks I just explained before, language models can actually work very effectively language models, who can improve very effectively by learning from how agents interact. So we came up with this technique called auto evolution, where essentially as the AI agents use the language model more and more, the language model keeps improving itself. And the last part of the shameless self-plug is that our business model is we're not a direct-to-customer company. We are an engine. We work with AI companies as well as agentic SaaS companies to essentially help you build your own vertical LLM. So all improvements that happen to the language model as a result of the agents that you build is your intellectual property. And what we, in fact, even recommend to our customers is that rather than sending revenue and customers to OpenAI and Anthropic, given the fact that we're 90% lower in cost, you can have your own branded LM with its own agentic memory and control and embed that as a part of your SaaS or any consulting service that you might have.
So one of the things that founders come to me all the time was for engineering resources, like, hey, I need AI expertise or I need full stack developers. And at first I started helping build this myself, but then I quickly realized that this doesn't scale. So I worked with Akash to have a program with all of you where he's providing the free engineering resources to build your product. So I want to go through the launch program a little bit. So there's two things that we do. One, if you're a startup founder and you have an idea or a roadmap that's an AI agent or AI product, the Agentic will come on. They have a team of developers and LLM researchers that will build the production grade AI agent application for you alongside the full stack application as well. And then if you already have a product, but you need someone with Gen AI expertise, they can also come in and help you. They're providing you with you can do they can help you with RAG optimization, adding guardrails, and it's highly accurate, effective AI models to work with. And then if you are interested in that product, I put in the demo that you can book with Akash and the team to learn more. But basically, these engineering resources will be free for you to use. Akash is very generous. So here you go. I sent you the link.